I want my games to feel good, and it says game feel. I am going to be a great student, and Justin is going to teach me how.
How would you define game feel? I'm calling them out.
We're not calling people out, Justin.
We're going to war, Tim.
No, we are
not. This is the war podcast. How do you think about game feel for the core of the game? How do you make a game feel good? I'll give it a 9 in 10 that you don't like the idea. 9 out of 10 chance.
Oh.
Actually, maybe a 9.9.
9.9.
So, here's the idea.
I got a book. This is the book.
I have a book, but it's not the book.
Hey, that is not the book.
that is a book. It's just not the book.
I got all kinds of books that are not the book, but...
Yeah, I have more books, like all in grabbing distance as well, so I can just... We could review the chapter titles. When you're in school and you're told to like study something, you want to review the broad topics before.
I tend to ignore that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the best student. When I was in high school,
we're gonna be good students today, Tim. Okay?
Yeah.
This is an official book club.
Yeah, okay.
This is not. We're gonna get A's, not F's, not D's.
I am going to be a great student, and Justin is going to teach me how.
Yeah.
So apparently, one of the things you do when you get an assignment to study things is you look through the chapters.
Yeah, because if you know the chapter titles, you kind of know what you're looking for as you read them. Like, what is the primary concept of the chapter you're about to read? It can help you remember the like important stuff. And for us, I think it could be interesting to kind of get a feeling for what our thoughts are on these topics before we read the book and see if our minds kind of change on how we think about these things.
Fair enough.
From reading the book.
Yeah, that sounds good. I need to know why this book, because I want my games to feel good. And it says game feel, like what the feel of the game.
I think the broad idea is that, yeah. Do you want your games to feel better to play? Because I also looked into what games he made, and they all did look very satisfying to play. I
didn't even do that. I had already... The book came recommended to me from someone. I don't remember who. And so I just grabbed it. And I've actually been wanting to read it for like a year.
That's fair.
So it's been a while.
I've definitely heard of this book. Now, how would you define game feel? As that's like the first chapter in the book. And it's just it's broadly relevant to... It's the title of the book. That's what we're hoping to get out of the book.
How I would define game feel is basically like... I think like the polish and the finesse of the moving, and like both in terms of how you move the character. I think that's a good portion of it. But there was one of my Reddit posts had a comment on it saying, would this apply to a turn-based game or something where you're not actually controlling a character avatar? And I do think there is game feel beyond just moving your player. I don't know if the book is going to dive into it or not, but I do think that having a timer and the way that the timer like either expands or does things can also add to game feel just as much as actually interacting with your player.
Yeah, when you say interacting with your player, would that also be like interacting with the car? Like, because your car
like you're driving the car, or...
Yeah, just whatever your controller is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like the real-time control and the latency between like your input and something happening, kind of.
Yeah, that's at least one part of it.
Puzzle game to more extreme.
Yeah, I think
I don't think about games in a theoretical sense often, so that's why I thought it might be fun to read this book with you and discuss it.
I've never thought of them as a theoretical sense, but yeah,
I mean that's what this is, though, right?
Theory. I'm not great at design, which is why I want to choose some design books to do this with. I want to improve my ability to design the games as well as make them look a little prettier, because I've got the programming stuff. I've got that pretty well handled. It doesn't tend to challenge me when I'm programming. But when I do art, I'm like a 3 of 10, and I want to be kind of like a 7 of 10. And when I do design, like when I was designing in Accelerate, maybe you can relate to this in Tower of Madness or another one of your games, but I could tell you when a level felt right, but I could not tell you how to get to that feeling. So in Turbo Boom, for instance, I made tons and tons of levels and threw about a third of them away, maybe even half of them away, because they just didn't have the right flow.
Feel good.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a ton of that with mine, but I also... The levels for me weren't as heavy on the gameplay side. Like, the levels were almost more set pieces, and Bjorn also did a lot with the levels for Tower of Madness. Like, I did some, but the gameplay in Tower of Madness is just walking, right? So there's not like, oh, how tight are the corners? How does it feel to, like, run around? It's more just having, like, visually interesting set pieces in the levels spaced out in a way that you keep like visually engaged. And then I guess with the looping levels, there was a feel for like the loop and how I frame the jump scares in the levels. How I kind of think about game feel is probably just polish. If I were to nail it down to like one word or one concept, is just like you improve game feel basically by making things shake when they're supposed to shake, making the right sound go off when you do something. It's like that feedback to make the player feel something when they're like interacting with the game. All those like little bits of polish, visual, auditory, and also gameplay wise, like how the physics feel and interact, like everything kind of coming together polish wise.
I wonder if there's an element to this that is like emotional feel too. Like if you're making a horror game, you're trying to add that scary feeling, whereas I'm trying to add maybe a feeling of speed and danger.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be brought into this book at all, more than just polish and how the character or avatar car, in my example, feels to
like gameplay feel.
Yeah.
Versus emotional feelings.
I mean, it's right there in the word, kinda.
It is, yeah. It's right there. I mean, the chapter 2 is called Game Feel and Human Perception. So that might, I don't see any emotion in any of the titles, but there's game feel and human perception, the game feel model of interactivity, mechanics of game feel, beyond intuition, metrics for game feel, input metrics, response metrics, context metrics, polish metrics, metaphor metrics, rules metrics.
Yeah, I think the middle of the book basically just goes through each of the different
metrics.
Yeah, the metrics, how you can, I'm guessing metrics here means like quantifying the game feel in each of those areas. At least that's what I'm
probably
sort of
those
hoping.
are all the things that form the
Maybe they use the metric
feel.
system.
So I have an advantage is what you're saying. I'm deep in it. I'm in Germany. You're in America.
I mean, I just don't relate to the metric system. I can use it just fine.
We'll see once we get to those metric sections of the book.
Okay.
We'll find out real quick.
Yeah, indeed. And then after going through each of the metrics, it kind of jumps into the Asteroid, Super Mario Brothers, Bionic Commando, Super Mario 64, and Raptor Safari, which are all, I think, case studies using those various games.
That would make sense.
Yeah, right? I have no idea. One thing that I'm always skeptical on with this type of thing is it's looking backwards instead of forwards. Like, you can always look at things that have done well and find things to apply to something, right? And pretend that that is what made it do well or not. Like,
sure.
I'm not going to say that the Super Mario Brothers, and I can already feel where this one's going based on having been in the industry long enough. The whole level 1 where you have to jump over the Goomba or you die. Like, it teaches you these things as you go, which I do see that, yes, it teaches you in some way, but it's also, I don't think they were as...
They probably did not think about it in any of these terms.
Yes, exactly where I was
they
going
were not
with that.
thinking about game feel. They were just like, let's make a funny dude jump, and then there's these turtle-looking things that run at him.
Yeah, like, it's natural to want your levels to grow in difficulty, but I doubt that that first level was actually created with all of the things that people look back on it these days saying that this taught you everything you needed. Like, really, the first thing you should have done in that would have been just jump over a static pipe without the Goomba. The Goomba is kind of a actual very dangerous thing right off the bat, no?
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, the Mario Brothers level is referenced a lot by a
lot of different teachings. So I'm expecting that that's what we're going to get in here. Yeah. I could be wrong.
But I think it's still interesting, even if we don't want to use all of these metrics ourselves, like as a checklist, like, oh, does my game use context and polish and metaphor?
Right.
I need some more metaphor metrics in this game. Even if we don't do that, I think it's interesting to go through this book and look at the different metrics and look at someone else's analysis of how to implement game feel in an interesting way to expand how we think about it in the future, even if we're not consciously going through a checklist.
If Metaphor Metrics doesn't have something on puns,
bringing back the pun feel of that was your strategy for Accelerate. I see.
I mean, there was a fair bit of that as a strategy in Accelerate. Yeah, it's very difficult, but then we throw some egg puns at you. And
was that all 3?
People loved it. Yes.
All 3 got the puns.
I wouldn't say that. I think North Pole did the least best puns. But
and it did the least well on Steam. Coincidence?
The issue of pun feel would be a coincidence to it not doing well. There were other eggs dropped. Pun intended. See what I did there.
Maybe now the podcast will do well because you're adding puns. I appreciate that, Tim.
So yeah, what do you think game feel and human perception is, I guess, if we're going through these chapter by chapter? I don't know if we're going to be able to do that for all the metrics and
we don't have to do all of them. We can also lump them together.
Yeah.
Like the metrics are all kind of similar. The case studies it's all case studies. So
Yeah.
I mean, game feel and human perception. I would guess that it's just analyzing it through the lens of how humans interact with games and how game feel is perceived by humans by their senses. So like their touch, their feel, their sense of space, stuff like that. That would be where I would go with that for like
Feel.
human.
Most game devs are humans. Yes. Yeah.
That is true, Bluepin. Little known fact. In chat, interact. Absolutely not, Kaz Games. We're never going to respond to anything you say ever. I'm sorry.
I have a feeling that this particular episode is going to be a lot more interactive with chat, but we definitely want questions and thoughts to come from chat, especially if you're reading the book along with us. I just think that there are going to be times when it's going to be a little harder to work it in if we're already in the midst of a deeper conversation. So
Sure.
I think it's going to be kind of a little bit of a mix. It's going to be probably more interactive than a podcast, but a little less interactive than my typical stream where I'm reading your chat instantly. And yeah, it's going to be...
Sometimes, unfortunately, I might read the chat instead of Tim. So.
Oh, I see. Justin's just going to jump in there and yeah, I think.
But no, I agree. When we're deeper in the book and we're talking on the actual chapters that we've read, we'll probably want to stick on topic a bit more. So if someone is just talking random stuff in chat, I don't know that we will be like, yes, let's read that chat message that's asking how to get into game dev.
Correct.
Probably not.
If it's somebody that's reading the book with us, this episode, we haven't read anything yet. Next week, we'll be reading chapters 1 and 2. And if you're reading the book with us and discussing things on point, we're definitely going to be much more likely to include that in the conversation. Can't wait for deep conversations. Y'all are iconic. Nice. I'm iconic. Hold on.
We're iconic. We are iconic, Tim. Don't leave me out of it. I see what you're doing. You're trying to push me out. This is only episode 0, Tim. Come on.
I wasn't trying to push you out, but yeah, the we included I. I had to get my head to go floating first. So for those that are joining, I want to kind of break down how we're reading the book a little bit. Obviously, the schedule is sitting there on the stream and elsewhere. No, it's this way.
Not for me.
Yours is down. See? Oh, you should have put the cameras in the same place as me, and then they would have been...
Wait, where did you put your cameras?
The exact opposite corners.
Oh, perfect. Next time, episode 1.
Yeah, here you go. Over a month to read a book?
I mean, you can read faster if you want. It's not the worst thing.
It's a pretty big book, but the way I broke down the schedule was... This is the less aggressive schedule because Justin wanted enough time to read it and soak in, and I do agree with that's a good assessment to do. Don't want to rush through it just to rush through.
Yeah.
Basically, the book has 3.5 sections to the book, and each section has two sessions of reading on it, is the way I've done it. So the first session is basically defining game feel and how the humans perceive it and models of interactivity, all of the mechanics and everything that go along with hopefully building up game feel. Then the next section would be the third is the case studies, and the fourth one is kind of the summary. And that fourth one is just the half, like the final end of book session that we get. Every other session is broken down into 2. So we'll do 2 weeks of the overall definitions and mechanics, 2 sessions of the case studies.
Yeah.
Just as how the book is going to be broken down in this schedule. Otherwise, it would have been... That's somewhat why there's a few that are shorter or longer weeks, is to keep with the sections of the book. Because I felt it would be weird if we were doing like metrics and then we jumped halfway into a case study too.
Yeah, we're trying to break it up into sections so that we're not talking randomly, and that each episode is kind of relevant to one topic.
I can't promise I won't read ahead, but I am reading the book. Awesome. Trying to read ahead.
I don't think there's any plot spoilers. I think you'll be okay. Yeah.
Spoiling. Indeed. Thorny's going to come in here with some ideas from the future of the book, and it's gonna be like, oh man, mind blown. You totally ruined that for me.
Yeah. He spoils the metaphor metrics. We might have to have a talking.
I'm gonna read it over 1 week because I'm grabbing it from the library. Sorry for interrupting you with chat.
Wow, Tim.
Yeah, right?
It's okay.
I'm interrupting the icons.
Guys, wait until you hit the metric points. Right? That's when we really become men. That's when we read the metric sections.
Indeed.
I'm calling the police. Bloop, don't snitch. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the metrics. I'm a little skeptical on them, but I am interested. I wish Justin and Tim actually collected player metrics, but they refuse. I do not refuse.
You don't know if I do that, and he doesn't know if
I have said that I don't, but it's not that I refuse. It's just a lot more to add in, and I'm not at the point where I'm thinking that's worthwhile.
For sure.
They both refused. I have not refused. I've never refused.
Me either.
I've actually said that I have built a system a while ago. I've got some form of analytics system started, just not really in place.
Something I'm curious about, Tim, is so you talked about how to make your levels feel good, right? Right now, how do you think about game feel for like the core of the game? Like how do you make a game feel good? Like you were talking about the controller, so the player. So like for your car, are you thinking then about how to make the car feel good equals how good the game overall feels? Like with turbo brakes, you wanted a car that felt like it had no brakes, and it's like you're losing control, so you're making kind of a more rage bait game. With Turbo Boom, you're going for something more actiony, so you're trying to give a feeling of speed to the player and fine sense of control so that they can avoid obstacles and like go for speedrun times. Like what is your thought process for that?
I don't know if I have a thought process, and that's where I'm kind of hoping this book might help me put a thought process
then.
To come
combustion of happening.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Rally of Rockets, I put tons and tons of time trying to find what I wanted from Rally of Rockets. I mean, it was supposed to be a 4-month project, and I spent like 3 months trying to get the car to do what I wanted it to do, and never really felt that I hit where it was. Or whatever. With Rally of Rockets, I could never get the car to feel, ooh, this is fun. This is great. This is what I want. With Turbo Boom, it's a little driftier than I want, but the feel itself is good. Like the drifting is actually negative, and I don't really like that part as like the overall game design. But in the game feel, avoiding the drift actually does increase the challenge to go faster. And I think that hit just a kind of sweet spot that other people really enjoyed. And the one that really... like Terrible Brakes has definitely hit very, very well. I had that you're always out of control, but you can kind of control the out of control. That's where Terrible Brakes hits this really fine line that I also think kind of happened in Accelerate. You have no control over the egg, but you kind of have control over the egg with your actions. So like, I think both of those games hit that balancing point of this is controllable enough, but difficult enough that you mess up all the time. And it feels just controllable enough that it was like, that was my fault. If I wouldn't have done that, I would have got further. And especially with Terrible Brakes, it's got a magical feeling to it that I can't wait to actually work on that as a game.
But do you have metaphor metrics in it?
I don't even know what metaphor metrics are yet.
Exactly.
I'm not.
But no, that makes sense.
Are metaphor metrics going to be like comparing your game to other games type of metaphors?
I have no idea. Well, you see, this should feel like Spider-Man, because if a game feels like Spider-Man, I heard IGN really likes it. So that's how you use metaphors, I think.
I see. Got it. Are you going to add that to Winnie the Pooh?
You can't literally use Spider-Man because of copyright.
Yeah. But
Winnie the Pooh will definitely have metaphor metrics. I'm all about metaphor.
And yet but with Winnie... Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm starting on a new project, right? And for game feel, like I said, I feel like a lot of it comes in the polish phase. And even what you said with like tweaking drift values or tweaking like the indirect control of the egg, like controlling the car, and then like how big is the basket that carries it. Like a lot of that is like in tweaking values to get like that narrow kind of range where things align and feel good. And so I think in the initial prototyping, it's a bit hard to like get a really good game feel. But I think like rigid body, like physics and Unity, and just like having direct control of stuff is like very satisfying. That's why you can throw the turtle in Winnie the Pooh. I added a turtle in Tim's honor as a result of Blue Pin. I think being able to throw it and every other item in the game, it feels good in a sense, just because it's, you see thing, you can interact with it immediately, and you can like throw it or drop it, and it then like does other things by like throwing it, which I don't know how that relates directly to these metrics because I haven't read the book yet. That's how I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I kind of would like to do, once we go through all of the case studies and maybe learn a bit, maybe we can do like an extra. I mean, that last session with the last couple chapters, I'm going to say are probably going to be pretty light, especially where it goes over the games that the author wants to make. And I don't know how much value I'm going to get out of the games that somebody else wants to make, and also the future of game feel. I mean, I'm open to whatever it's going to say. Maybe there's something in there, but I do wonder if during that last episode, or even we add one more episode thereafter, where we do a case study on our own games and go from there. It might prove a place to show improvement, both on a shipped game and on a game that we're in the middle of working on. I think would be a neat thing to do.
Yeah, retroactive and current.
Yeah.
Thornity says that he thinks it'd be valuable to, while discussing and reading the book, talk about basically what you just said. So, like, say we read the definition of game feel and hue perception, then like applying specifically, oh, how do these two chapters apply to our project? So we could do that in like parts, and then maybe at the end talk about it overall, or we could just do what you said just at the end. I don't know how you feel about that.
I mean, our games have already popped up a little bit in this session as we're trying to kind of compare them to the book or like see where the book might help them or such. I think they'll just naturally come into the conversation several times as we do that. And I think also at the end, we can do a deeper dive on them too.
Yeah, that's why everybody in chat has to buy all of our games twice.
Thank you. Exactly. Twice. Nice. Yeah. Buy them all. Do you have 2 copies of Accelerate yet?
I have 1.
Yeah.
But I haven't read the book yet, you know? I'm not ready yet.
There is
no this book. It's a process, Tim.
Yeah.
And this book is at the center of it. Literally. It's like, I don't know where I am on your screen. There?
You're at the book is to
this side?
Yep.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, that's the schedule is below you.
Yeah, but the book club icon is in the middle of us, so it's the center.
I always go for the wrong one first. Cameras.
That's important. Yeah, the 3rd chapter is the game feel model of interactivity, which I think all the chapters before input metrics, I think, are probably just defining like how he thinks about game feel.
Yep.
And then he defines basically the metrics to achieve what he defined in the first 5 chapters. That's what I'm thinking looking at this.
That's what I'm feeling is going to happen. And we're going to read chapter 1 and 2, then chapter 3, 4, and 5. So,
sure.
I mean, chapter 1's also kind of big, 35 pages in one chapter. That'll be a doozy.
That's true.
Guess I'm back at
who's the guy who wrote it and what gives him the audacity? He made like Tony Hawk, okay? Don't you like Tony Hawk?
That's his claim to fame.
Yeah, Tony Hawk. I mean, we could look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Don't worry. We got this 7 and 8.
Steve Swink website. He's not famous enough just to look up Steve, but I maybe up the wrong thing.
Off-Road Velociraptor Safari. Sounds like a good game.
He did Tony Hawk's Underground. Is that a good one?
Tony Hawk game. I'm going to say yes. I don't know if I played it.
Wait, I've played one of his games. I didn't even realize this. I played Gravity Ghost. He made Gravity Ghost. I remember Gravity Ghost was a fun like puzzle game.
Did it have good game feel?
Yeah, I would say so. It's you like float around with your duders, and that felt good. The gravity mechanics. It's kind of like Mario Galaxy, I guess.
Okay. Mario Galaxy threw me the wrong way. I was a little annoyed with it.
Oh, figuratively. Okay.
It annoyed me. I bought it thinking it was actual co-op, and the second player's co-op is collect some coins. Like they didn't actually have, it was like, here's your 4-year-old, give them the controller and they can do something.
They did that with Pokemon as well. The Pokemon Let's Go series, they were like, it has co-op. Did not have co-op.
And yeah, I don't mind that being in a game, but don't call it co-op.
Yeah. It's just about setting expectations properly.
Yeah. Now Split Fiction, I would say, is a proper co-op game.
Yeah, that's almost too co-op to be just called co-op. It's like masterpiece of co-op. The new category.
Yeah. We need to finish that at some point. For those that didn't know, Justin and I are playing
Split Fiction Ultimate Co-op. What do you think about the Mario 64 co-op mod? That doesn't sound like game feel, though that is in the book, Mario 64.
I haven't even played Mario 64. What?
I think I played a, what's it called? Emulated version of it?
Emulated?
I don't remember though.
Split Fiction Ultimate Co-op. Yeah, Emulation Station.
Yeah. The first 5 chapters, I guess, are really just all on human thing. I don't think we have to go through them one by one. But yeah, it's like perception, interactivity, mechanics. I mean, do any of those like pop out to you like as interesting from the first 5?
I'm interested in the mechanics, and I guess I'm actually also interested in what the metrics actually mean, which, or if it belonged in the first thing without them. I went without them because it felt like the rest of them were, you know, just like, here's some definitions, and then here's the metrics, it felt like that was the way it was going to be. But chapter 5 could have been in either, and I'm really interested in...
I guess it's the intro for metrics. It's like, okay, I define things. Now let's go beyond intuition into how do we define them with metrics.
Right. And I'm curious if there are metrics that we can actually use to make games actually feel good. Like I'm really curious. Is it measuring how people are doing things and then you can get the feel from that? Or I just don't know how the metrics can be used yet. Like this would be so much easier if I had already read the book, but...
That would be cheating, Tim.
I don't know if it'd be
Not allowed to do
cheating,
that.
but it would definitely give me more knowledge already for what's to come.
You would have knowledge. That is true.
That's why we're reading.
I mean, you said earlier that you are worried that these lessons and the like concepts of the book are applied retroactively to games that have already been successful.
Especially in
So
the case
what
studies, yes.
Yes, but what would it take? Like, what is the differentiator for like reading this book and coming out on the other side like, oh, I want to keep these metrics in mind versus like, I don't think these are relevant. Because either way, the case studies are not going to change. They're all old games. So what you said that's concerning won't change. But then what is the like, what makes a metric good or bad before even having read it? Does that kind of, am I making sense?
I think the question makes sense. I don't know if I could tell you. I think what would make it good, in my opinion, is having both pros and cons to the metric of what it's trying to measure. So if it's doing input metrics, for instance, and I'm getting this from a picture that I may have thumbed through the book, I'm guessing that they're telling you,
Spoilers.
yeah, spoilers. Spoilers. I've seen some pictures, and I could be getting this completely wrong because I haven't read near the pictures. I just kind of looked at them for a moment. But one of the pictures kind of shows a controller and goes over how various controls, like a button is on off, and some of the right triggers are like, you do have some precision to it, but it's not as precise as the thumbsticks, for instance. And so if in those metrics they're diving into both pros and cons of something, not only looking at this is a pro, this is a pro, I think that is something that balances things out in my mind. Otherwise, I don't like things always being the positive side. I want to know when to use something and when not to use something, because there's always a when not to do something too.
Yeah. How would that apply to how we've already talked about it? Like for my own like way of thinking about game feel, it mostly comes down to polish.
I mean, the negative of polishing something is it takes a lot of time.
Sure.
That adds a lot of cost and doesn't always result in sales.
Yeah, like the trade-off between when is it polished enough, I guess.
Yeah.
And for your own, what would the negative be? Like for how you currently think about game feel and define it. Like I think about it mostly in terms of polish, right? How do you think about it in terms of?
I was thinking of it in terms of the polish.
Avatar feel. Yeah, so what is the downside to like the avatar feel then?
I don't think it would work as well because Turbo Boom is a precise, like a precision racer almost, where if you're off by the smallest amount, you hit a explosive. And so I think that would be the negative. I think the negative of having slippery feels in a precision based place wouldn't work as well as having tighter controls, if you will, like a car that rides more on rails. It might also be something like you're having like a double jump in your control scheme can work in certain situations, but also has a negative effect of now you're always designing levels with a double jump in mind. Otherwise, players just double jump over things, and there you go. But I mean, that's where I think negatives could come in.
The avatar is specific to the game and what you're actually trying to accomplish.
Right.
It's not universal.
Yes, definitely true.
Yeah. I imagine that'll probably apply to a lot of his metrics where it is like a game case by case basis. Because even the idea of like real time control over something immediately doesn't apply to like turn based. But like for me, when I was talking about like the physics interactions in when the real time, like, oh, I can throw things and it's like satisfying to immediately be able to interact with things. If you're making a turn-based game, it's like a very different approach, I think, that you would take to like making a turn-based game feel good.
Right. I'd actually like to understand how to make a turn-based game feel good. There's definitely bits of like, you can't just go from one state of the turn to the next state of the turn because people get lost doing that in a digital manner. Like if you're making a chess game, you don't just snap the piece to wherever the person moved the piece. You kind of show it moving there. And little feedback things like that go a very, very long way. I expect that's where your polish type of feel would come from.
Yeah.
What do you expect to be the negative of polish then? Where are you going with that? Maybe the negative polish, or like what would you see as a success coming out of the book in terms of being applicable to polish?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't just have to be polished. Like I expect I'll have a better definition for what game feel is than just polish, hopefully, by the end of the book. I mean, if I read like 300 pages on game feel, one would hope. But I mean, beyond that, what do I hope out of the book? I want my games to feel better. I think we want people to enjoy playing our games, right? And I think how it feels to play our games is a big part of that. I do not make turn-based games, generally speaking. I think the idea of game feel applies to the kinds of games I make, probably in like big part. So if I can improve how my games feel going forward and make better quality games, I think that this book would help with that. I'm not expecting to get out of it, because maybe saying what I don't expect is also useful in
Okay.
terms of going into it.
Yeah.
I don't expect to get like, this is how to make a game that will sell well. So I don't think like you said, like he looked at like retroactively successful games. I don't believe that game feel is what makes a game sell well
I agree.
inherently. Like, yeah.
I can see it being a multiplier once people are getting into it, but you still have to get them into it. And I think that's where I was going earlier with your comment on polish and it being costly to polish and doesn't necessarily do much to your sales. Like it will do something for your sales if you're already hitting a critical mass that people are coming in. It will kind of do the multiplier of like, oh, the game does also act nice and is nice and polished around the edges, but it also isn't like if you spend 2 years on that, it necessarily equates to sales.
Yeah.
We should really try doing one of these where we're actually doing something on selling games at some point, no?
We want to sell games, Tim? What do you mean? What are you talking about here?
Hey, I don't know about you, but I have a runway. It's got an end to that thing. I mean, it's still out there, but I want to be flying.
Maybe you wouldn't want to do this, but we could talk about that video series in depth and what like a one-off special. It's not a book, I realize, but and I know we disagree about it. We could also hear like Fat's comments. I don't know if you don't want to disagree, but I think it's interesting to have like a discussion.
I don't think it's bad to disagree. I really don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know if I've got enough on that particular series to, and that's gonna be one of my problems, as you probably already know. I go in with a very skeptical viewpoint that, I mean, I've heard tons and tons of sell your game sort of stuff that it's easy to look back and say, this is what happened without actually knowing that that is actually what happened. Like even when I'm looking back at Accelerate to the Tropics and guessing as to why it didn't go well, there's no reasons to say that those are actually the reasons why it didn't go well. Those are just the lessons I'm pulling from it, and I might be off base. There's nothing that says, here's what went wrong, you know. That would be easy if there were.
Yeah, I mean, that's personally why I like that series, because it's based on a lot of like retention data from like YouTube, his own and the channel, which I don't know if you got to that video. But regardless, outside of that, like the counterexample to what you're saying with like, oh, you can look retroactively at successful games. I wonder, would be actually looking at games that aren't out yet and then predicting their level of success, or ideally as early as possible. Like if you just know the concept of a game and then you somehow know that and try to predict its success based on your principles, and then you can see like how it does when it releases. But that's kind of difficult, right?
I've kind of tried working that into my marketing research routine. You both have to look the forward, and then you have to re-look backwards like a month later on them to see how true your predictions actually were. And it's just one of those things that takes up too much time to be worth it for me. Sure. I do think it's a good practice to have, or, you know, just to set your own scope. Do you predict
the success of your own games? Like for me, Tower of Madness, I got about what I expected, maybe a little bit more. And Alone in the Stars also kind of met my expectations. It didn't do well, and I kind of knew it wasn't going to do well. So like, I feel like I have I feel like I live in reality. Like I didn't think like Alone in the Stars was going to be like $1 billion, like I'm going to make tons of money. And same with Tower of Madness. Like I kind of knew about where it was going to land.
I definitely do have some form of prediction on my games, even when I try not to. Accelerate went easily 15 times bigger than I was expecting. Easily 15 times. Yeah. I was not even expecting to get the $100 back, $1,000 in sales. That was not did not expect that.
So that would show potentially an error in how you're predicting success for your own games then, no? If you had such
except for outlier. Accelerate to the North Pole went completely below what I was expecting. And I understood that to be my release on DLC and not marketing it. Like, so I kind of ate that as my own. I changed my marketing schedule into development because you can't release a game that's not finished. So things just didn't work out. But then when I came up to the Tropics, I actually thought Tropics was going to do about the same as original Accelerate. And it did not at all. It didn't even make me back the money that I spent on contractors, but I also went a little bigger on contractors that time than any other time before.
Yeah.
And so that one didn't meet my expectations or projections.
Yeah. I mean, that's 3 times that's 3 for 3 where your projections were wrong then, no? Because first you didn't think it was going to succeed. It succeeded. The second one,
yes,
you thought you didn't.
I'm absolutely 3 for 3 wrong. Correct.
I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just
Thank you for taking this icon and throwing him down a few pegs.
No,
okay?
You're still an icon, Tim. You're still an icon, Tim. Don't worry. That's not my point. We're all wrong. We all make mistakes. That doesn't matter.
No, we
The
definitely
point is
all
that
make
we
mistakes.
learn, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So did you adjust your predictor like each time, or like
I
how?
felt like I adjusted it each time, but I think what I've done is I might not have adjusted it between North Pole and Tropics because I was assuming too hardly or too pointedly, I guess, on the release being not marketed and not released correctly. I think I put that too much emphasis there, which made me keep, okay, Accelerate did this, and if I remake it with like the same sort of stuff but new, it could do better. And that never happened. With Turbo Boom, I'm skeptical that I'll make it as good as Accelerate Original did at this point. I'm hoping that it will be, but I'm seeing some design flaws. Like I was saying, it's very drifty, but you don't want to drift. Like there's kind of a design fight in there in the game where it almost asks you to keep drifting, and yet that's not the way to play the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's gonna throw some people, maybe not on the wrong path exactly, but throw them off of what they were expecting. Like they're going to jump in and think it's going to be different because the trailer is going to have lots of drifting and stuff in it just because that's action. But at the same time, you're trying to avoid that more than do it.
Okay. So what you're talking about right now is kind of game feel in a sense. So would you say that game feel factors then into your predictive, like I lost the word, but the predictive model in your head for how you predict if a game is going to do well? If that,
I think it does because it's going to break the expectations a little bit, kind of like Accelerate broke expectations with it had a nice, cute, low poly, kind of a calm aesthetic. Like the art vibe is chill, and then you get in and it's like Dark Souls. I think I'm
meeting expectations, sure.
Yeah, so I think I'm going the wrong way on those parts of my games, and I'm hoping that Game Feel is going to help me align some of those up a little bit.
Expectations better.
Yeah. Accelerate happened because it was a game jam that just went well. Like it was low risk, somewhat reward,
decent
maybe.
Reward.
Yeah, exactly. Low risk is their reward. It didn't really matter either way, and it went bigger than I thought. Yeah.
It's interesting though that the first thing you mentioned is kind of game feel, but I guess it's on your mind because we're reading game feel. But for me, if I think about like my predictor for success, I don't think too much about the game. Like for me, the game feel is as Bluepin is saying, after they've bought the game, that's when they experience the game feel.
Right.
It's more of a factor on if they refund.
No, that's exactly where I was saying it's not going to be an indicator of sales, right? Like that was our discussion earlier on that. It's like you have to play the game to feel it, and it will be something more on the refund rates. Or
I think there is an element where game feel matters though, beyond that, where like other people play it and how the game feel comes through in a watching. Like in content, right? Like
and
game feel comes through there as well. Yeah. In YouTube and Twitch and shorts, whatever kind of content is posted on the game.
Right.
And even in your marketing material, potentially in like the trailer and stuff. So it's not like game feels totally irrelevant. It just that a lot of that is just visual. It's because people won't actually have it in their hand to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree. There's still a multiplier to it. It's not there's nothing there, but it's also most of that is felt once you play the game, and that means you've already bought the game.
Yeah, for me, if I think about my predictors, I would say I base it kind of on competition. Like what's the current state of the market? What are the similar games? Are similar games coming out and doing well still? Or is it oversaturated? Which for Alone in the Stars, I think it was oversaturated. And I wasn't doing anything unique enough from similar games to stand out. I also think in terms of like, will content creators want to play it? Like the virality element of it. Like, does this make good content to play this game? Again, with Alone in the Stars, I don't think that was true of it. With Tower of Madness, I think it was better, and it has done better with content creators than Alone in the Stars. Even now, I get more like key requests for it, even though it's older. So yeah, kind of the place it has in the market compared to similar games, the virality of the concept and how well it can do for content for people, i.e. how much interest there will be in actually playing it. And then you can get to like hard indicators like Bluepin said with like how many wish lists, how many views are things getting of the game. But that's kind of a given, right? Like everybody can say, oh, this has 100,000 wish lists, so it's going to do well. That doesn't really help you in planning a successful game.
I got it. I'm just going to make it so that Terrible Breaks has 100,000 wish lists, and I will succeed.
Easy. Best predictors.
Figured out the recipe, guys. Thank you so much for the help, Bluepin and everybody else.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, but But what you said with like game feel and what we said is also a factor for me. Like thinking about will it meet expectations?
Yeah,
But something that we didn't say is the expectations of the players based on the genre and the type of game, because I think that changes a lot too.
right.
Like horror, I think versus like the roguelite, I think the expectations for roguelite games, which Alone in the Stars from players is like so many of them are so cheap that being a $5 game, they still expect like hundreds of hours from your game, which is rough.
Yeah. Thornity says, I include many different game feel things before someone buys the game. When you watch a trailer, there's communication, the visual emotion, commitment to the player. Yeah. We were talking about how it shows up in the trailers and such and your
Yeah.
media content. I had a question based on this is a little bit off of game feel, but it was
Game feel.
close to what you were doing with your predictors. Are you basically assuming that any game must go through content creators to have chance of sales? Like, is that a must?
I think it's a huge factor. I don't think there are games that don't do that, but that's not the kind of games I'm trying to make. Like there are games that can do well via the Steam algorithm, I guess you could say. Like there's certain games that just perform better on Steam. Like there's like the buildy crafty, like there's if
Right.
you look at a game like games a site like GameStats, you can see median revenue by tags
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of see which tags and which kind of games do better on Steam based on like what kind of game they are. And those types of games aren't necessarily games that do well with content creators either. So that would be like an alternate route is like trying to make games that Steam likes in a sense,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Okay. Steam doesn't like racing games, so here's my problem.
yeah. So I would, if I were you, I would probably assume what I'm assuming, which is you need to go through content creators, which I think is why the first Accelerate did well because it reached a lot.
It did.
But I think it could have done even better if there was more reason to buy the game after watching someone play it. Because I think games like that, like rage games, can sometimes be more fun to watch someone play than to play yourself.
Yeah.
So like
definitely.
that. Yeah, and that's a problem with horror games actually too, which I'm kind of specializing in if you don't know me. It's more fun a lot of times to watch someone scream and freak out and like see the jump scares through someone else's eyes watching their video than going to buy it yourself. So that's a question too of like, how do I make the game more interesting to want to play?
Unrelated, but do you know?
The first game that scared me?
Yeah, I know exactly which one and which scene. Everything hits very hard in my head for me.
I don't have a specific memory.
There's a scary moment in Oblivion.
Well, I played it when I was pretty young. I was like 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember having anything different there with Oblivion, but Dino Crisis was mine. A T-Rex jumps out of a room into the hallway and just about peed my pants.
It's 18 plus though, and
I was pretty young when I played Dino Crisis. I'm pretty sure that was 18 plus, or would have been if it were rated today. It had lots of blood and gore from the dinos.
Yeah. So do you not think about creators then? Because you asked me if I
definitely
do.
Think about creators, especially after Accelerate. And I think that's one of my better avenues of marketing. It's the one that I'm aware of as far as contacting them, giving them a reason to want to play.
I'm attempting that with Winnie. The Winnie the Pooh part is the like, oh, this is funny and memes and it's familiar and potentially viral. But my attempt to like make people want to play it is like actually doing a ton with the gameplay, which is why the scope has blown out of proportion. Like interesting things and secrets. I'm trying to make every item kind of interactable and like funny physics interactions and Looney Tunes style traps, so that it's actually fun to like interact with the world and like do like creative different things. Like I'm doing crafting. I'm doing all these like systems that are gameplay focused and oriented. And I'm probably not going to do like with Tower of Madness. I was much more story focused. But again, you can watch someone play through a story. So with this, I'm less story, more gameplay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Split Fiction comes to mind, which I think was an inspiration for you.
Scope creep in. Yep. But I'm done. I already have all the scope. Now I just make.
Yeah, now you just make. Okay. Let me know how that goes for you.
I'll let you know.
Scope always finds ways.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, in Accelerated North Pole, I put in the collectible snowman. It was like, oh, it's just placing 100 objects in the levels. That's not that bad. And a system to collect it. That's also, I mean, it's just a counter. It's not even a hard system. Yeah, it's not just that. Nothing is just as simple as it sounds.
Except Justin. Listen, everyone else makes jokes about Just and Justin. I'm allowed to do one, okay? It's my given right, born as a Justin.
This just in.
Exactly. See, you just did it.
Yeah, I had to follow it up because you set everything there, you know?
I did.
I wouldn't be doing my stream justice if I didn't.
Justice.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Punny, I understand. So the next section of the book, to bring us back on track, because Game Feel, this is a podcast about a book named Game Feel. So after all the metrics, did we talk about the metrics a bit?
We kind of talked about the metrics a bit, but we don't know how to dive into them deeper because we.
Yeah, I think we covered them. Metaphor metrics is the best one. We agree on that.
I mean, there's a rules metric, so
metaphors are better.
Maybe you're putting metaphors in the rules.
I think my guess for rules is that it's going to be about systems, because systems can be seen as like a set of rules.
Yeah, go ahead and guess that there's a certain level of you need enough complexity, but not being complex, if that can make any sense to you. Like, it needs to have depth without complex, like over-confusing.
Yeah, like Hearthstone.
Yeah, I've not played Hearthstone.
That's okay. I like Hearthstone.
Yeah.
But I don't play it anymore. Yeah, the next section is the case studies.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if we have to talk about their case studies, but maybe like what are games that have bad game feel? Like of your own, like maybe not necessarily your own, because we kind of talked about our own. But like have you
played many games that have felt, ooh, this doesn't feel good to play. Most of them don't have many sales, but I don't think those are related.
Yeah. I have one that has a good amount of sales that doesn't have good game feel.
Okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
And it's The Quarry, Until Dawn. Actually, the whole studio. I feel like their whole studio, every game they've made, bad game feel. I'm calling them out.
We're not calling people out, Justin.
We're going to war, Tim.
No, we are
not. The war best.
Can pinpoint a game. Let's not call out the devs. Come on. Just stay
but
friends.
The games are lovely, and I understand why they made a lot of sales. Because even though it has bad game feel, it has good storytelling. It is basically interactive movies. Yeah.
What?
So
I've not played any of the games though.
Yeah. So all the games are horror. They all have branching narratives, and they all have a cutscene constantly. Like there's always like 5 minutes where you don't have a cutscene playing, and you can like walk forward a little bit, and then a cutscene plays, and then you walk forward again, and then another cutscene plays.
This is very loosely related, but you feel about those cutscenes that all of a sudden, like you have to start pressing buttons. There's a word for this. I don't know what it is.
I did that. QT. Yeah, Tower of Madness. I did it.
Quick time events. There you go.
It was fun. I love watching streamers freak out when my QTEs pop up.
I absolutely can't stand them.
The game. So you agree with the war call out, because that studio QTEs all across the board, every cutscene.
Yeah,
we're going to war, Tim.
I'm not going to war. I don't got your back. You're on your own.
Okay, I love them.
But QTEs, if give me a cutscene, if you're gonna let me play, let me play. Split Fiction has done this in a couple spots where it's like, oh, you got to press this during a cutscene. It's like, no. I'm in story mode right now. I have 2 modes.
I was eating. I was taking a break. I wasn't ready for this.
There was a time when that was happening. Oh crap! I'm eating.
Yep, that happens.
Yeah,
that's when you get them as the dev. That's when you sneak in the secret.
I mean, QTE. I guess as a dev, having watched some people play Accelerate, I could see this being amusing to watch somebody hit a quick time event when they're not prepared.
It is amusing every time. Yeah. And I think that's the reason to do it, probably, is to increase engagement, right? Because cutscenes can dip engagement in like content because they're not interacting at all.
Well, and let's put in less cutscenes. Not even as dev, it's amusing. That's what we were just covering. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Yeah, is that's the point of QTEs, is to keep everyone engaged. And
I have no idea how
we have
a
story-focused game, because I was talking about a game that doesn't have good game feel, but it has a lot of QTEs and a lot of cutscenes. So it's a very different kind of game, but it's very successful still. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm on topic, Tim. Okay. I'm talking about.
I understood we're close to the topic. I knew we didn't get far off it.
Yeah.
And I know that we can't cover their case studies yet, other than us just kind of guessing on other games right now. My problem is I don't play too many games, and the ones I do, I tend to like. I feel Rocket League has great game feel. And I feel like if I had never played Rocket League and I played Turbo Golf Racing or whatever that title is, there's a Turbo Golf, something like that. Okay. It's basically Rocket League but golf, for those that are wondering. But their feel is so different from Rocket League that it throws me for loops that I do not like. And I think had I never played Rocket League, I would actually like it. But I think there's a bias in me having played Rocket League already that it doesn't work.
That's interesting, though.
It's close enough, but different is the problem that breaks my brain.
That comes to like familiarity and expectations and like habits, and because that also plays into game feel. Like you said, if you already expect it to feel and play one way, and then it doesn't, it's like, I don't like this. Yeah, I think that's why so many games do things the same way, right? Because when you don't, then it's like breaking from convention, and for the players, it's like it's not good. That's why every game moves with WASD. And actually saw a game recently that didn't have the default bindings to WASD, and there was like all the reviews were like, "Don't play it. Key bindings are bad," because they weren't rebindable.
Okay, I'm feeling called out here.
Wait, you did this?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I've always listened to my chat and added this stupid WASD, but here's the thing.
Okay.
Like if I'm playing a racing game on the keyboard, it's going to be from the arrows.
They did some random
Unless
keys,
there's
I wasn't talking about arrow. They were doing like Z, T, like they were doing some weird stuff.
Probably had a non-English keyboard layout, and
100%.
that sounds awful. Yeah.
But that plays into game feel, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to be
that might have
different
metrics on the input, you know? That might be input metrics.
Yeah, but it even goes beyond input, kind of, right? Like, because how something feels isn't just in the input. And if you have an expectation for an RPG to have a upgrade system that feels a certain way, and then you make an RPG where the upgrades is like totally different and weird, then that can also feel wrong. And like, but I don't know if that's game feel necessarily, but
yeah,
I feel like it'll tie into
metaphor metrics is going to cover everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
At least for Justin. I don't know what else we could cover on the case study area, or what you're thinking may happen there. Like I've already covered the whole Super Mario Brothers is probably going to cover that first level thing that's been.
I don't know what Bionic Commando is or Raptor Safari.
I think Raptor Safari is the game that I just found, the wild off-road. No, it was Velociraptor Safari. Well, it's probably close enough that they probably just went with a shortened name for it. That's my pretty sure that is where this one ties back to.
Now it's making sense.
So I'm guessing he's done a couple.
Let's skip that chapter. Let's not give him free promotion, Tim.
What?
I don't approve of that. He needs to sponsor us. Which shout out, if you want to sponsor this podcast,
hell yeah,
you can do that, and then we'll shout out your Velociraptor game. Okay. Otherwise, we're skipping the chapter. We don't give free promotion here. Thank you.
Except we got a book. I'm pulling up like that. I couldn't do that any better.
Perfect, Tim.
Yeah.
This is why they pay us the big bucks.
Yeah, I did. I'm not getting paid. Wait, we're getting paid?
Once we get the sponsors rolling in.
Okay, let's get the sponsor. Do you want your book read on whatever book club? We should probably call this like GameDev book club or something. But yeah, one day. One day we'll figure this out. This all happened within like a half an hour before today's show because I am a pro
and it's
procrastinator.
Going swimmingly.
They're not getting paid. Why do I keep getting slammed with ads? I ain't getting paid enough for those ads, I can tell you. I would pay Twitch to get rid of them.
All right, let's spam some more ads.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
We're on all kinds of ads right now.
That's the showcase section.
Yeah, little showcase section. And then the very end is going to be like the summary and
games he wants to make. Again, he can call us if he wants us to promote his stuff. But
and the future of Game Feel, where we should be looking. I'm going to guess there's going to be something in VR there.
I love VR. Have you played? You have a Quest, right?
I have a Quest 2 sitting over there in a box that hasn't moved in probably a year.
But have you used it before and played a VR game?
I have played iRacing on it 3 or 4 times.
But you haven't tried anything else?
No. I want to try Beat Saber, but I'm too cheap.
Chat. We need to have an intervention with Tim. Tim, you're not allowed to listen to this. Chat. We need to have an intervention,
I'm not listening.
Okay? We're going to plan it. We need him to play more games. This is an emergency.
Hey, I have done actually really, really good. Okay? Just the other week, I had 6 different games that I had. Factorio demo, Rollick and Roll, Make Way, iRacing and Rocket League, which are the 2 staples.
Those don't count.
And Split Fiction.
Okay, 2 of those don't count, but I'll give you 4.
Yeah, that's like a record, okay?
No talk about game art or shaders. Spoilers.
Samara is, in fact, talking some spoilers. Yeah, this isn't really a development book. It's more of a design feel book. It's a feely book. You see, it's in the title, Game Feel.
Yeah, this is basically therapy. We're going to talk about our game feelings.
No shaders, indeed.
No shade.
Which says he needs to play way more games. I would love to even expand out of racing a little bit just to see what I can bring into the racing genre, maybe. Problem is games are so expensive.
Yeah,
okay, it's good when you have a job. If I had a job, games would not be expensive. I could play them whenever I want. Like I wouldn't even.
You thought about Game Pass?
I mean, that's a thing.
Because that's probably cheaper in the like. I guess maybe it doesn't have as many indie games, but
yeah,
I mean, if you just want a volume, that probably has the most games for least other than the high seas. But yeah,
we aren't doing seas. We're not sailing. I get
no
seasick.
Sailing. True.
Tim should play Baldur's Gate 3. He loves D&D stuff. I've been told that one. I've also been told to get Pathfinder Kingmaker or whatever it is, which has been on my wish list, and I can say that that one's me being procrastinator because it drops to like $3, and that's not too much for a game. So yeah, he thinks $6,000 is fine, but buying games is too expensive. I've probably spent $1,000 on Steam lifetime, and by lifetime I mean in the last 2.5 years, 3 years tops. So it's not like I'm not spending any money on games. Just I'm picky.
Got to be careful.
I mean, I bought Split Fiction.
True, but you didn't have to because you wanted to play with someone else too. I understand.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean the last section we kind of went through most of the book. The last section is just about games he wants to make, which I guess would be games we want to make, and then the future of Game Feel. You said
that's the way we're going to talk about that. Is we'll cover the games he wants to make and whatever, but we're going to cover what we want to make after having read this.
Terrible breaks. Do you see a world where this book changes what you want to make? Because you're whispering, but I hear you. You're saying you want to make terrible breaks. Like, is there a world where this book changes what you want to make?
I don't know if it's going to change what I want to make. I think it might change how I approach what I want to make.
Okay.
What I really hope to get out of this book is the ability to define, like, get a little bit less murky on how to create feelings I want to create, whether that's in the avatar control or the polish, or I don't know if this game is going to go to the level that I want with the level design type stuff, because I'm not getting the feeling that it's going to have much level designy in it. But
the book?
Yeah. One of the things I do want to get from doing this little book club, whether we're going to read more books or not, right now it's just this one, but I want to be able to create and know it's going to feel good as I'm creating it, rather than create this, create that, and then find what pieces work together and then mash those together, which is currently my process. Like, find the things that feel good in the game and then put them together. That's how I approached Accelerate, all three of them. How I approach Turbo Boom.
Yeah, so it's not very methodical. It's just kind of feeling around and then, oh, this feels good.
And it feels like it takes so much time and wasted effort, when I know there's always going to be some amount of that. That's just how games are built. Like, you've got to find the good things. But at the same time, I want to have better ideas on how to find it without searching so, like, wide. Like, I'd rather...
You want to shorten the search, but you don't want to eliminate the search.
Exactly.
Do you do GDDs? I don't actually know this. Do you make game design documents?
I make very loose game design documents, like a page defining what the game pillars are and the overall, this is the sensation I'm going for, but I haven't put like a big story in my game, and I feel like that's where GDD would be more beneficial, like a bigger GDD, that is.
Sure. So you're not talking about the Game Feel book influencing your planning phase and your like pre-production, like giant game design document about how you perfectly planned the game feel of the game and designed every element of it. It's more that when you're making it, you change your search process.
That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
Efficient. Yeah. For me, I guess it's also changing search process. I don't think, like, maybe I want a little bit more in the pre-planning I feel that the feel won't come until I start like messing around with it, instead of just like having something on a piece of paper. Like, oh, this is going to feel good because the Game Feel book said that this metric with the metaphor metric equals epic. I need to try it.
Yeah. I mean, basically what I'm hoping for is just take my ideas and then get them closer to feeling good more confidently. Like, I've done a lot of Ludum Dares or game jams, and there are times when you know it's just never going to feel good, so you give up on the feel and you just complete the game anyway. And then there's times like Accelerate where you just wound up on a magic. This felt great, just naturally. There it is. And I'd kind of like to get a lot more, like, let's say that right now 3 out of 10 of my games feel good, the other 7 are either mediocre or bad. I would like to be able to shift this to like 7 out of 10 of my games feel good and the other 3 are mediocre or bad.
Sure. I have a hot take. Do you want to hear my hot take?
Sure.
I think probably every game concept could be taken to a point of feeling good, like game feel wise.
I think so too.
Yeah.
That I do think so.
Yeah, because it's probably not accurate to say it's just polish, but in my mind, like, you can add game feel to a concept like on top. It doesn't need
I would
to
definitely say it's not just polish.
Start. Yeah, sure.
There's a lot more to it than just that. And I might disagree on, I guess, maybe not disagree entirely, but I would say there are concepts that are going to be a lot harder to make it feel good than others.
Yeah, like if you think in terms of a game jam, if you have a much smaller game, you can spend way longer on the game feel and it's going to feel better to play at the end just by the nature of it. And like in another project, like the quicker you get to game feel, the longer you're spending on it in the overall like project timeline, unless you're planning to spend however long, that's probably important. Because most of us don't want to spend 10 years on our game, on each game. So like time
Yeah.
is a limited resource. So if it is a big scope thing, it's harder to get to the point where you're even working on game feel, as opposed to just making like the thing move or whatever the equivalent is for all the various mechanics, you know?
Yeah, that brings it back to the Rally of Rockets thing that I was saying, where I just couldn't find the good feel. And I think that's one of the first things you should chase. And it's effectively where prototyping comes in. Like, prototype your concept and make sure you're finding a feel that is good, and then build it out.
Yeah, my process is not that, because I think I'm more concept first than like mechanic first. Like, I think broadly, like Twist, or for Tower of Madness, I want to make a upside down tower horror game. Like, it's not like there's not a mechanic there. There's not a game there. It's more just like a concept. And when I start working on it for Tower of Madness, as I said, there's not a lot of game feel in Tower of Madness. It's more like the studio I called out that made Until Dawn, with like cutscenes, jump scares. It's not really, it's making the player feel something, but it's not as interactive, and it probably doesn't meet a lot of these metrics, like the metaphor metric.
I see you're loving this metaphor metric. You really are.
I just like to throw it in there, you know?
Yeah, I've noticed. So Blueprint has said, also be careful with falling in love with something that sucks. Lots of people fall into that trap with their games, and that is like a very valid point. Yeah, that's where having other people to play test your game, and ideally people that don't know you play test your game, not your friends, not your family, not the people that come to your stream, but people that have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
Let them play it that way, and hopefully get the honest feedback.
Theoretically, the concepts from this book could help with that as well.
Yeah.
Like if,
I mean, that's
if
what
you have
the metrics are for, right?
Yeah, that's what the metrics are for. Exactly.
Yeah. I'd like to know what units these metrics are going to be in. Inputs per second?
No, I can't tell you. It's a secret, Tim.
Button presses per second?
No. Listen, it'll all become clear in metaphor metrics. Then you'll know.
I see.
But before then, we can't discuss it openly. Prefer to sneakily collect data instead of relying on honesty or unbiased, and see if they like it, because I can see how they play. Yeah, I like to watch people play live my games, because even if they know me and they want to be friendly, you can see in their reaction and in like how, if they're struggling with things, et cetera, et cetera. So in that way, like, yeah.
I like watching people play my game when they don't know I'm there.
Yeah.
Learned a lot on Accelerate from that. Boy, do I have some mistakes in that game, but that's what we do. We make mistakes, we learn from them, and we move on.
Yeah. You said that you didn't, all the game feel games that had like bad game feel were not successful, right? That you could think of?
At least most of them. I would say that I didn't really care too much for the Turbo Golf racing game feel, but that was from
success,
that wasn't necessarily from me saying that it feels bad. That was from me saying I played Rocket League and it was too close to that concept while breaking Rocket League's feel.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that game was relatively successful.
So you want all your games to have good game feel?
I definitely want all my games to have good game feel. Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if that's true for me, honestly.
Okay, let's dive into why you would want a game to not have good game feel.
Because I mean, at least how I'm thinking about game feel right now, because I think it's
I mean, if
it's
you're taking it as just polished, then yeah, I'll agree with what you just said.
Even beyond polish, I think it's a kind of a gameplay thing. It's not really like, you can have an engaging story, you can have like cool cutscenes, you can have cool art. Like, there's other elements of a game that can be appealing, enjoyable, and sell the game without having good game feel, is how I'm thinking about it. Which I don't know if all those elements can be had without. But if that's the case, then I feel like someone can love your game in my head without like it having amazing game feel. Because as I said, I think Tower of Madness doesn't have good game feel. And I think
you're right.
has better game feel. But I would say the reception and general sentiment is more positive towards Tower of Madness. And like,
I think you're right that it can, like, there can be enough of something else to cover up game feel.
It's not cover up. I would say it's like the target. Especially as indies, we can't do everything. Like, we can't make, like, it's like making an extreme case would be like an interactive piece of fiction. Like, there's those games where you
what I would change, or the way I'm understanding it from this thing when you're saying not cover up, I'm thinking you're not meaning bad game feel. I think you're meaning not an emphasis on.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to put it. I agree. It's not that you're covering it up. I'm more just saying there can be different targets for like what your game's trying to accomplish.
I would say with Accelerate, I didn't have a target of making the most polished game that I was making. I had a target of making the most valuable thing I could do in a very short period of time. I mean, that part players don't care about because they're not the ones making the game. They want a good game. But so I took a lot of shortcuts on you that it's a functional, it works, it doesn't get in your way, but it's not good and it doesn't feel good. Like I didn't add game feel there, but I also made sure that it wasn't going to get against you either, right?
TIS 100.
Great game, not a great feel game, but loved by all Zachtronics fans.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, Umara. Basically, I think there are scenarios where game feel is not the priority. You still probably don't want it to like hamper the experience though, to Tim's point. Like you don't want a lot of your game to be like bad explicitly. Your games will be compared against games who spent way more time and you live or die by the result. Careful with arbitrary deadlines. Yeah, I think that comes down to the kind of game you're making, the player expectation for that kind of game and the genre. That's kind of what I was saying earlier with I think roguelites have very high expectations because of the comparative games. But there's definitely niches where you can have a short deadline and you don't have to like go insane.
I mean, I find Accelerate, even with a short deadline, to be a successful game. It didn't do anything crazy as far as sales or fan base goes, but it did go beyond my expectations and everything else I set into it. So by that, I call that one success. I think it was the original hit Easter Feels and Spring Feels a lot better than either the other two.
Yeah, that
and
too.
I think that was a very important part to what Accelerate was.
Yeah, it ties more directly to the overall package because it is eggs, like tying it also into like, spring and But again, like even the theming is also, I would say, unique. Like that's what I was trying to say compared to other rage bait games. So it sets it apart.
Yeah.
And when you set apart like that and don't have as much like direct things that you can compare to, what he was saying where, your games will be compared against games you spent way more time. That's no longer the case because doesn't have that direct comparison as much.
Right.
And then the games that do, I think a lot of rage bait games are kind of made like quickly. They aren't like AAA studios that are making like rage bait games normally. Like, unless you consider like Dark Souls.
I don't know if I consider Dark Souls rage baity. I definitely consider it hard, but
yeah, I think it has too many systems and it's too much more than just a rage bait game.
Yeah.
I think part of what makes rage bait games good and good for streamers is their simplicity. That they're not trying to do like 20 million things.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
And how about that
index?
Yeah. There's an index on the book.
There is an index. That's going to be my favorite chapter, I'm sure.
I'm probably going to skip the index myself. There's going to be a bunch of words and page numbers in there.
I'm going to read it right now.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, this is a good index. Very good.
I can't help you.
All right. Well, we talked about game feel, Tim.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
What am I supposed to feel? What?
I don't know.
Yeah. How do you feel? I know that this is episode 0 and we haven't read the book yet, so there's a lot of unknowns, but is there anybody that's A, looking forward to this, but B, what are you looking to get out of it as well? Oh gosh, chat being on the spot. Yeah, fresh off a sneeze. Feeling good. Awesome. Is there anything any questions you have? That would be the thing that I would have. Any questions that you have about the book or where we might be going, what you might be expecting or
something you would want out of the format?
Yeah. Ideas that you might want in the format. I definitely want at the very end of each of our I think as we go into the book, it's going to be a little bit more podcast, but I want to
start with a recap because it should be accessible to people who haven't read the book.
I agree.
That's okay.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by a recap, but yeah.
Just recapping what we read. Yeah, we can.
I mean, that's the podcast, right?
Oh, well, we should give like a brief because there's a difference between like discussing the contents and recapping the contents. Does that make sense?
Yes, does make sense. And I would think that we would do a recap and then we would discuss it. I kind of think we might even do a recap chapter 1, discuss chapter 1, recap chapter 2, discuss chapter 2. I don't know. We'll see how it all unfolds.
How interconnected they are.
Exactly. Dude Sword asks, how much do you expect to disagree on things? From time to time.
I'm interested in seeing Tim Bliss based on their existing games. I expect to disagree the entire time, Tim. We're going to war with each other and other devs. This is the call out for the...
Okay, I'm looking for a new host for my book club.
See, we're already disagreeing because I don't feel that there should be a new co-host.
Yeah, that was quick, wasn't it? We can't disagree with anything in the book because Tony Hawk sold well.
That's true, too.
Sorry, nice try.
I'll agree with you this time, Tim.
Sorry, nice try. Cool. Well then, how much time do you think it's going to take to go through the podcasty thing? This was 2 hours. At least 15 minutes of that was set up and probably 20 minutes if I was just chilling out. But I'm curious what that looks like. An hour? 90 minutes?
Hour to 2, maybe.
An hour to 2. Yeah, that's basically what I was setting aside
I'm
for
thinking.
it, but
yeah, maybe sometimes we'll go 10 hours, but that's like a special case, you know, when
I'm
we're
not
going
going to
to
go
war.
10 hours. I have
We're
way
going
too
to
much
war.
other stuff.
We have to go to war, guys.
Are you looking to be interviewed? Yes. Yes, I would like
I'm
to be
interviewing
interviewed.
Tim right now, Clawstorm. Don't worry.
I
I'm
don't know
interviewing
if
him.
you're interviewing me as much as
I'm doing it, Clawstorm. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Also, I want to be interviewed, Clawstorm. Thanks.
You don't want to be interviewed?
No, I do.
That was my turtle bot asking about interviews.
So, yeah, but it was in my chat. So, really, I don't know.
Who's Timmy? I would prefer the podcast in 30-second clips on my Instagram reel feed. Oof.
Do we need a fine print? Justin's impressions do not represent Tim's.
She interviewed me and she was great. That sounds awesome. Classform. I will have to try reaching out. Dude Sword has an idea. Both should suggest a game for the other to play on the next week and discuss how they would what they read applies to what or not to what they played. I don't know if I can do that while committing to the book read.
Let me find the most expensive game on Steam real quick.
I'm going to go change the price of Accelerate real quick. Hold on. No sale for the next week.
Yeah, I would also be open to the interview with Emily at Pixel Breakdown, Clawstorm. We are both icons, not just Tim. We are co-icons on this podcast.
Make use of Steam returns, play less than 2 hours. I'd like to see advice from the book implemented and a recap of that work. I think that's going to be really challenging to tweak directly in, especially when it comes to metaphors.
No, metaphors is going to be easy. Metaphor metrics, I got them. Might be easier for me because I'm in earlier stages than you because you're working on Turbo Boom, and that's like late stages. You don't want to add features. You want to
definitely not adding any features. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, I don't expect Turbo Boom is going to go big, so I'm just looking to get it shipped at this point. Like, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Whereas for me, Winnie the Pooh, I'm going to spend the next 30 years on it. So I can apply the lessons of Game Fuel on it, I think.
30 years. Nice.
Do you know what you're working on the next 30 years? Exactly. I'm thinking ahead, Tim.
That's my racing sim. How
big do I think Winnie the Pooh will be? Depends on how well I do with the implementation at this point. Like, I think the potential it has is like to the moon. I mean, but I don't know that you'll like my concepts because we have very different.
We definitely have different ideas there.
Yeah. Also, I'll tell you an idea right now that I mentioned. I think even earlier today on stream that would do well. I think for you, and I'll give it a 9 in 10 that you don't like the idea. 9 out of 10 chance.
Oh, probably true.
Actually, maybe
9.9.
Yeah, I think it's like very, very like you're like for many reasons. So here's the idea. Do you know Cars?
The movie?
Yeah, the movies by whoever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, sure.
There's a movie. I know what a car is.
Nostalgia from Cars.
I missed a word. I missed a word that was really important. What?
You draw on nostalgia for Cars.
Yep.
With a horror twist. But you don't use anything directly from it because copyright, obviously.
Yeah.
But the generic concept of a car with a face that's not copyrightable. Like you can do that. You make it a horrifying speed racing monster race car that's trying to eat you, and you're also a race car, and you're trying not to get eaten. I don't know what the game mechanics are. As I said, I'm more of a concept theming person, but I think that would be good because it's twist, it's racing, it's speed. It's drawing on nostalgia for Cars, which I think at this point everybody knows Cars.
Okay, guys, we know what we're doing for Halloween, and I like it. Let's go.
Okay.
You had the 0.1% is what you gave it?
Yeah, I gave it 0.1%. Yeah. Justin's advice, Choo Choo Charles clone. That's not true. That's not a Choo Choo Charles clone, what I just said.
Yeah.
And neither is what I did.
There's a little bit of mechanics, but I can see some mechanics that I could do in it, and it actually fits somewhat an idea that I have on my...
Choo Choo Charles? Nah. Because I'm not picturing this as like a person. It's going to be strictly like racing. Yeah. Like I think you can have similar like ideas and like themes without having similar mechanics and gameplay.
Creepy taxi game. It wasn't creepy taxi. I mean, it was morbid, but there was nothing
guy based.
Nothing scary there.
Hey, Clawstorm, I make games too. Okay. I know you're new to this channel, but I make games. Thank you. I'm not just an idea guy. I'm not just a pretty face. I'm an ugly one too.
Yeah. We'll get there. Thorn is wanting to do more than just the racing. We just got to start building up. That's the thing. I'm going to call this here.
Okay.
This was fun.
He's tired of me, chat.
He's tired of me. Nah,
I respect. We leave.
I need to go start to the gym. Reading
I'm leaving
book.
you, Tim. I'm leaving you, Tim. Okay? You can't break up with me.
What? I need to go read the book, okay?
I understand.
But I do want
need to go
to point out that it is going to be Fridays, every Friday at 11 Eastern, which is
That's true.
1500 UTC, as long as I got that right. And yeah, every Friday, 11 Eastern, 1500 UTC, we are going to be starting our book club review. Next week is chapter 1 and 2.
Yes.
Chapter 1 and 2. Okay.
Read the book, follow our channels. If you are someone who has money, then reach out to me or Tim about sponsoring the podcast. Otherwise, every Friday, like he said, we'll be here streaming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that'd be great.